Good morning, Sherry. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be here, Adrian.
Oh, thank you. I've been so excited about our interview. And you and I started talking a little bit, and I'm asking you all these questions. I'm like, let me hit record. I find what you do so incredibly interesting. And so, for those of you who don't know who Sherry is, I'm going to give you a moment sort of just to explain where you are today from a professional standpoint
Okay.
and what you're doing and all the amazing things that you have accomplished and are accomplishing as we speak. So, would you mind just to share that quickly with our audience? And then I've got tons of questions. I'm so interested in how you got to where you are today.
Well, thank you. I would describe myself as a serial tech entrepreneur, having successful exits in both Silicon Valley and the Toronto Waterloo corridor with two IPOs and two acquisitions. So I have been in information security. Some people call it cybersecurity today. Well, most people call it cybersecurity today. Well, I started many years ago as a cryptologic mathematician with the US government.
Wow.
Then I left there and I decided I wanted to become an entrepreneur. And I'm now trying to figure out the genesis or the roots of that. And I think I might have figured it out. I think it's my mother. So she didn't directly, but somehow she was a risk taker. And I'm even learning as she's 91 years old the risks that she took, which I didn't even know about. And so I
Wow.
went to I left the U.S. government, went to a startup in Silicon Valley, became part of their management, the founding team, and spent 6 years there. Then I decided I wanted to do something different, and so I came to Canada. So that journey has been great. As I mentioned, my successful exits. My last exit was in 2017 when I sold my company, TrustPoint, to Robert Bosch Group, a private German company. And I did it for many reasons, and maybe we'll have time to get into that. But it
I
led
would
me
love
to
to.
reassess my life. I had 1 year transition with them, and then I had a non-compete in the information security area, and I really thought I was fine. I really thought I could rewire myself and not start another company, but I wasn't able to. So within a few months, I said I started with it just being a project with the University of Waterloo math faculty, and I could get into that too in more detail, but I won't at this time. And it ended up being a new company. So I formed a new company called Profound Impact, and we connect great people to do great things. In particular, we bring together researchers, academic researchers, industry partners who want to do research, and funding opportunities. And we use AI, machine learning, data analytics to make the perfect match in order to get the most for the research dollar. There's $2.5 trillion globally, US dollars,
Wow.
available
Wow.
worldwide, and it's estimated that 30% is wasted. So that's what we do right now at Profound Impact, trying to make a difference in the research area.
I love that. And I want to hear all about it 100%. And I think our interview is probably going to go two or three or five different segments because I definitely we're going to get back to how you are doing and your exit strategies and I love the fact that you also said well, it's kind of my mother's fault. I always say that too. And I love my mother's 88 and still going strong. She was an Olympic swimmer. And it's so funny that we sort of draw the strength from the first women who were in our lives. And like you said, I'm learning now, but for sure, there was obviously some kind of sort of teaching, if you will, through her parenting that got you to where you are. And I think once you have the entrepreneur bug, I think it's always sort of innately in us. I mean, I learned at 10, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur after I had my backyard carnivals and I just loved seeing people happy and making this event that made them happy. But going back to what you do and what you did, it was almost like everything you did was leading up to your journey and your purpose and your passion today. Would you think
Yes.
there's a little truth to that?
There's definitely truth to that. I believe that I like to start with why, a Simon Sinek fan, and I believe your why changes and your passion changes through your journey. And I would say that uh, my early days when I left the U.S. government and became on my first entrepreneurial uh, um, job, I said I wanted to have be in control of my own destiny. And what that means to me was being in control financially in particular. But so that was very important. But I said, I know I can do it. I know I can go out and take risks and make money and be successful. And successful to me was doing a good job. So it wasn't at that time necessarily all about the money. But I wanted to bet on myself. So
I love
that was
that.
the
And
first part of it, was betting on myself. And so I did
yes.
make the first move to do that, and they asked me, it was a startup, so they said, what can you do and what do you want to do? And I said, I want to head up Asia Pacific and Latin America, because I had a degree in Spanish too and spent a year in Costa Rica. So
Oh, nice.
they let me do it, and then I finally just was running Asia Pacific and dealing with 13 different cultures as a woman. It was interesting, and it was like some days one step forward and two steps back, or that dance that we all do as entrepreneurs. And
Sure.
so that was my first why, my first passion was saying, I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to prove to myself, mostly to myself, that I can do this. And then after that, my why changed after I had
And
been with the Silicon Valley company. Yes.
exactly. And we'll get to that, but well, many important things you just said is I was going to take a chance on me. That to me is so profound because so what I do, as you know, is I also teach rockstar confidence. But confidence really is that self belief and that belief system you have for yourself. And I don't think, I feel like we're all innately born with it. As we grow and in our younger years, that might somehow get skewed and, it might not be so clear. And so our why does become clear, right? And like you said, I love the fact that you said sometimes our why changes, and that's okay because there's a lot of women that will come to me and say, I started here. I mean, look at you, right? I started here. I went here, but I really want to be here. So I love the fact that you permitted your why to change and you gave yourself that grace saying, look, I've, rocked it in this space and now I want to be here and I have the confidence and the belief in myself that I've got this. And like you said, I think entrepreneur life is always one step forward, two steps back, three steps forward, one step back. That's life, right? And the path that we choose. But I love the fact that you believed in yourself. And I think fear and lack of confidence, which really is self belief, kills a lot of these dreams for women. So what would be one small tip that you would give somebody that's watching or listening to this podcast that's in that sort of, do I just give up on my dreams because this is hard? I've had, 100 no's. I think I was watching something, and the gal that started Canva, she was told no 100 times until the 101 time she was told yes. So what would you say to somebody listening that's on the cusp of throwing in the towel?
Just talk to yourself. Know that it's going to be difficult. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And just understand that if you believe if you can persevere, that will achieve it. Now, we were talking about risk, and I do not describe myself as risk averse. I describe myself as risk aware. And
Oh,
being aware of the risk and saying this is what I'm going to do. I'm aware of the risk. I can, I'm not avoiding the risk. I know it's there, but this is the reward. So it's that sort of thing. And then I'm trying to understand that within your own environment. But so I've been pushing this for myself too, that I have to step out of my comfort zone almost every day.
Well, that is key, in all the keynotes that I give, I talk about confidence, I talk about yes, you can, but the big one is being uncomfortable. And as human, it's a natural thing to want to be comfortable.
Yes,
Even if we talk about, sitting on a couch eating potato chips, watching Netflix, favorite space for me. But you know what? I'll go there a couple times a year, whatever. But it is important to be uncomfortable because in that space, in that time of any kind of uncomfort, is where growth, innovation, resilience is learned, right? It doesn't happen when you're comfy sitting on a couch or sitting where you've been for years.
yes,
Growth comes from being uncomfortable. And I love
yes,
the fact that you said that. Would you agree with that?
definitely. I I just find that you think, and I've had five successful, well, I'm on my fifth one. It is going to be successful exits. That I, you think, okay, I'd get used to this, right? But no, being uncomfortable changes. And what makes you may go, okay, now I'm very comfortable speaking in front of people, doing a podcast, or pitching to people. So last year I pitched at Collision. Over 10,000 people. Our company was chosen as one of the top 10 companies to pitch. I was shaking. My knees were knocking, and it was a 3-minute pitch, and it was like I'd never done this before. And I'm going, what's going on here? So
Yeah.
it was very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable. I got through it. We didn't win, but probably because I didn't feel as comfortable as well, you want to be comfortable, you want to be excited, you want to be passionate. Anyway, all these things, but when your knees are knocking, that's not a good thing. So,
It's not good. But, right. But can I just take that back and let's analyze that for a second?
okay,
Because I had a very similar situation, happen, not quite like what you're talking about and not as big, but this was huge to me. And like you said, I've spoken in front of thousands of people. I speak in the media, I do whatever. And I was speaking to somebody that really meant a lot to me. She was a mentor, she is a mentor, and somebody I really respect. But it's those nerves. It's the, okay, maybe you didn't win, maybe you didn't hear what you wanted to hear. But I needed to take like 2 days to sort of step back and say, okay, there was a lot of positive, there was a lot of things I learned, as I'm
yeah,
sure you did. But I was so curious, and that's the thing I really want to encourage people to do is be curious about why you're feeling the way you
yes,
do. And for me, I don't know if you've come up with that answer, how long ago it was, but for me, the answer was it was because it meant so damn much to me,
yes,
right? And
hmm
hey, people always say, oh, you can't take business personally. And I'm like, that's my fifth baby. Business is very personal to me. I
yes,
get I'm a
yes,
woman, I get all of that stuff. I don't care. It's very personal to me. And I think like if I didn't care or if your knees weren't knocking, I would really question like, do you even care about this particular thing you're doing?
yes, yes.
What do you think? Like, did you
Well,
find
it
out
was
your like
interesting.
why?
I've had several therapy sessions, I'll call them,
Yeah.
and about this because I thought, okay, why am I, after all these years, why did I freeze or why am I having difficulty in as you said, in certain situations, not like here talking one on one, but getting in front. And it is because I care so much. I want, to be effective. Maybe I'm taking it totally personally. And this advisor said to me, then own that. Own it and say, to even maybe to the audience, I'm so excited and maybe a little nervous to be here and just
Yes.
acknowledge it and get it out of the way. Just say, because, my hand's shaking, my knees are knocking, and just say, okay, I'm just really totally into this. And so
Yes.
then the emotions can come out. And I think as women, we often, and I've tried to do it over the years, is to suppress that. And then that's when things get worse because you're trying to say, I want to suppress this nervousness. I want to suppress this emotion. And I want to talk like a robot here with
Robot.
everybody to understand what I'm saying without, all this drama around me. But that's who I am. That's what makes me unique. And so owning that
And
and so, yes. So
and
I'm
celebrate
still
that.
working on that. So,
You know
yeah.
what though? You said I'm making some notes. We're all working on it. People um to just to go back to what you said before that about being a journey. Everybody thinks, so once I get to this, or once I have one successful exit or 12 successful exits, then that's it. To me, and my next tattoo, and everybody knows because I'm covered in them, like with my motivational sayings, is life's a journey, not a destination. And it is
Yes.
a journey. And so, in my humble opinion, you could sit there on the couch and not do anything. You could get on stage with your knees knocking and your hands shaking, but you freaking did it. And
Yes.
yes, you can learn from everything, and same. And I have something in my many teachings called Own Your Shift. And that's exactly what you were talking about. And I
Yes.
said shift, not the other S word. Is owning it is so empowering. I love Brene Brown, and she is there's so much power behind being authentic and vulnerable, and you put those two together, and like you said, however it comes out. I mean, in a lot of my keynotes I talk about excuse me, being that girl that would skip school. Yes, I skipped school. Hopefully my kids aren't listening, although 3 of them are already done. Is when it was speech day, because I was terrified. And then I don't know if you know, I think I'd mentioned this to you before, but one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, I got certified as a life
Yes.
coach through him to sort of get through and to serve my private investigation agency, and to serve others with the education and with the knowledge. And when I told him about this, he was like, "You were made for the big stage." I'm like, "Not a chance." I'm like, "I was the girl that skipped school during speech." And he goes, "And that is even more proof that you were made for the big stage." And I was like, "Okay, I love you and I love him, but he hasn't a clue what he's talking about." And it constantly in the back of my head, it's like, I don't know, there's got to be some truth to it. Many years later, decades later, here I am doing podcasts and media and keynotes and whatever. So it's that thing, whatever your why is, that makes your knees knock, or makes your hands sweat, or makes you nervous. That energy is, I think, your body sort of telling you, hey, this is big, this is important to you.
Yes.
And I think I love the fact that you're saying you're still working on it. We're all still working on it. I don't care who you are. We are all still working on it. And that is brilliant to have somebody like yourself sit there and say, hey, I'm working on stuff. We all are. And that is so empowering. Do you find it to be like that? Because I know,
Yes.
just last thing is, back in the day, we would, especially as women, and especially, and I'm also in a very male dominated and non-traditional space, we'd hold things very close to our chest, talking about advisors or therapy. Forget it. I'm openly saying, look, I work on my body, I've got a trainer for this, and I've got a trainer for my brain, and I'm okay with that, right?
Yes.
I'm okay to be better and make myself better. So what is sort of your take on being open about these feelings, whereas back in our day, we never talked about it? Is it empowering to you?
I think it is, and I think it's empowering to um, young women too to understand that uh, being your authentic self and showing your individuality and your vulnerability is very important, and that maybe it wasn't accepted 10 or 20 or even 30 years ago. I just know one story when I was at the U.S. government, and I came into an office in a senior role, and I was the only woman, and there were 3 or 4 men, and I'd walk in one day, and I hear them, they're talking about me. I know they're talking about me. And I hear the phrase, well, if she can't handle the heat, she should get out of the kitchen. And, I just said, okay, I just ignored it and acted like I didn't hear it at all. That was the one lesson I learned is to pick your battles. But,
Yes.
and so then it was just saying, it's okay. Whatever they were saying, I never dug down into specifically what they meant by this, is that I was who I am. I am different than they are. And I'm not going to worry about being a part of their little group because because of my authenticity to myself. So I think it's empowering because we don't have to pretend. We don't have to say we have to be molded in their image, and their and how they want you to act and talk. So I think that's liberating and empowering.
I think so too. And kudos to you for many things. But, again, being a female in a space that you are the only female. And I think I'd mentioned to you, I was the first female in North America to own a private investigation agency. And I had everything from online, bullying to many other things that sort of created me to step out of the media for about 10 years. And I did that for my own reasons. I had a young family, etc. But the fact that, and I had adopted this attitude, like what you're saying as well. The number one thing for me that works is to not allow the external influences affect who you are. If you know who you are as a person, and like you talk about young women, and I cannot imagine how it is for some young women. And we talk, and I don't, look, social media and the internet and technology is beautiful and wonderful for many, many things, but not for everything. And what it's doing to our youth, and I mean, I know that this could be, again, a whole nother conversation and a whole nother podcast. But for you and I, we'd go to school, somebody didn't like something or said something to you, you dealt with it there. You went home and things were good. These girls are bringing it home and it's in their face and it's very hard for them. And so my big takeaway always, and anybody who will listen to me when I am talking to younger women or women of all ages, is that the external influences, especially the negative ones, really work hard on not paying attention to those. So how did you do that back then? Why do you think you were able to sort of not, let's say, confront or ask, or, hey, what are you saying? That's inappropriate. Whatever other people would have done. Why did you do that, and how did you do that?
I think it goes back to the phrase I used earlier, is about picking your battles. You got to figure out what is important and stand out for that. There are some things that you can't control, you cannot influence. For example, in the same office, there was a man who was I worked with my immediate boss, I would say, even though a colleague, but more senior than I am. And he was disrespectful, very talented in his own right. He was almost a genius, I would think, but he treated people very poorly, especially the administrative staff, made up of all women. So one day he spoke to me and said something to me in a tone that was so disrespectful, and I stopped him and I said, "You don't talk to me like that." And he stepped back, and I think I'm probably the only woman who had ever done that, and then he never did again. And so that was a battle I chose to fight, where the other one I chose to ignore. And I'm not saying we're going to get that right, but you everything that, and I didn't grow up in the social media craze that we have today. So that I'm not saying I would have done well with it, but again, having to look at it and go, okay, this is a battle I'm going to stand up for. This is something I really believe in, and it's very important for me to stand up. This I can ignore.
Yes.
So that's not easy to understand, but I think if you try to understand yourself and your own core values, then that will help you figure out what battles I should fight.
Yes, and that you said it perfectly. I think it comes with experience and with a little bit of age, and I think that we get to a certain point that we're comfortable with ourselves. And again, I'm not saying 100% comfortable, because I think we all go through growth and we all go through things we love about ourselves, things that are okay and things that need improvement. That's how I am, anyways, and we're forever evolving. But the fact of what you're saying, pick your battles, like what's important to you and what's not, I think is worth its weight in gold, because, you could pick every battle and just be totally exhausted, and
Yes.
it would take away from your vision and your mission. Or you could say, okay, I always go back to this. Apple has, I think this was what it was 6 months ago, 2.8% dissatisfaction rate, 2.8. So if you're even close to that, even if you're 10%, you're good. You're not for everybody. Not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody needs to like you. I know for me, I mean, I love all humans. I find everybody incredibly interesting. Not everybody's like that. I'm not for some people. Some people, might feel differently, and I'm good with that. As long as you know who you are, and it sounds like you've always been very much about integrity and honesty and being very proud of everything that you put out there. So that means you're a really good, kind human. And so if you can lay your head down at night and say, I did the best I could, I'm not perfect, but I did the best that I could in a way that's respectful. I think if everybody was like that, wow, there'd be world peace for sure.
Yes. I also think it's
So,
very important for women to know this, and young women, is that we don't have to be perfect. We can't be perfect. We're human beings. And so accept that, and as be the continuous learner, try to improve in the areas that you've identified. Be self-aware. I believe that's important. But know that it's okay to say, I'm sorry, I messed up. And I have to do it with my staff.
yeah.
Sometimes I'm a quick thinker, I'm a quick decision-making person, and I'm a little bit ahead of some people at times. And so sometimes I don't, and I'm talking about trying to be more respect their opinion. And so sometimes I have to go back and say, I'm sorry. I think I disrespected you, or I interrupted you, or whatever I did. And it's okay to do that because
Yes.
they're not perfect, and they don't expect you to be perfect, and you don't need to expect yourself to be perfect.
And it goes back to owning your shift. But I love the fact that you talk about perfectionism, and I always like to tell people everybody's perfectly imperfect. There's no such. So I use the word perfect all the time, but not as in you need to be perfect. Somebody will send me, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, perfect. It's a cute little way to whatever, but people, and especially with certain media, especially women, we think that we need to be something. And like you keep saying, and you keep going back to, which I love, is just be your true, authentic self, whoever that is. So I know our time is limited. I have so many other questions for you. I was going to ask you just two or three, if you don't mind, about what you're doing today. So you have created, amazing things. Tell us a little bit about where you are today and what you're doing.
Well, besides profound impact, I am
If you
involved
can
with the
talk about that as well, if you'd like
Yes,
afterwards.
but I did already say what we're doing and trying to disrupt the
Yes,
research um, area, funding area. But there's
yes.
another initiative that I'm doing with Deborah Rosati and Lara Zink called Women Funding Women. It is a collective, it's not a fund. The genesis was I was raising money last year for my company. Being a successful entrepreneur, I didn't expect as many hurdles as I faced. And so finally, I just fed up with talking to the men, and I decided I'm not talking to them anymore. I'm going to go find the women of wealth who have never angel invested before.
I
So I
love
was able
that.
to go to a family office in Toronto, meet with some women. We finished a raise of 3.125 million, with the majority being first-time angel investors who are female. So given that, and Deborah was on that journey with me, Deborah Rosati,
I heard.
because she is a chair of my board, and she also is an investor in my company. So she was there and she saw it too. And so after this, we said, we need to help change this for other women. We know that only 1.9% of all VC capital is invested in women-led ventures. This is in North America. And so how can we be the catalyst for change? How we can quit just talking about it. Let's see, can we move those numbers? And so we started this collective. It's a national, Canadian-wide, and a collective that's main mission is to get female angel investors to invest in women-led founded companies. And there was a study last year that was put out by an organization called the 51% means women, that said that if we could get women to invest the same level as men, that we could add I think it was $3.2 trillion of capital available. So this is my passion. This is one of my whys now, is this to women funding
Yes.
women to move the needle on this, getting more women in to invest and getting more investment in women-led funds, ventures.
That is so profound. And you know what? Yes, I do know, and that's where I was going next, but I'm so glad that you brought that up because it is hard. And you know, when I was at We Connect International, it was part of a pitch competition and in Denver, and I was the keynote there, and they were pitching their businesses to, to Google and to Meta and to Amazon and whatnot. And to have something like this in North America, like you said, where people can come, women can come with their ideas, and there is such creative and such amazing, incredible women. But then to also, like you put another spin on it, to have the angel investors be women.
Yes.
That is absolutely, positively one of the best ideas I've ever heard of. I know when Deborah talked to me about it, and that's actually how you and I met. I
Yes.
was like, you're got to be kidding me. I'm like, this is brilliant. So I love the fact it just sounds like all of us are trying to be part of the solution. And I think there's such, and we talked about this, I believe, prior to us hitting record, but there's such power in numbers. And, we are so much more powerful together, which
Yes.
is what you, Deborah, and I believe there's somebody else with you as well.
Lara Zink.
Yes.
Lara Zink. Yes.
That is also involved in this. So tell me a little bit about what are the next steps for what you're doing now with that?
Okay. So, first of all, you could join our Women Funding Women LinkedIn group, and we will keep you updated on events and opportunities. So we take information from the ecosystem and we amplify it out through our means. We launched in February in Toronto, February 7th, and then the next day we had a funder-founder roundtable, which included VCs, angel investors, aspiring VCs, and the founders. Our next event will be in Vancouver, October the 30th, evening event, and October 31st, a funder-founder roundtable. We are going to also be having local events, hopefully one in the Kitchener-Waterloo area in September, hopefully one in Toronto soon. So we want these local events, and we're looking for the national events too. What it is we want the conversations to continue. We want people to reach out to us who are looking for funds, and people who are having training women in how to be an angel investor, which the 51 does a lot of that. There's others. So we feel we're just in the middle of it. We're a collective. We're trying to amplify what everyone's doing, identify the gaps, and see if when we do identify specific gaps that we can bring in partners to help work on that specific area where we feel that there's a need. Yes.
Well, you can count us in 100% to continue to amplify your messaging, your needs, your events, because it is so incredibly needed. And I'm going to applaud all three of you. It is about damn time, I tell you. And, it is things like this and ideas that were probably born in or at, let's just say, we'll say a kitchen table or in a restaurant at a restaurant table, and it came to fruition and you made it happen. And I give everybody that's doing something like that so much credit because it is hard. And like you said, you were in, sort of the risk management role. So there's risk. You know that there's, putting this out there, there is a certain amount of risk. I mean, with anything in life though, but you
Yes.
took that and you believed not only in yourselves, but you also believe in your founders, your entrepreneurs, and your investors. That's a beautiful
Yes.
thing for
Yes.
women. So thank you so much for that.
You're
I
welcome.
wanted to ask you a question, and I'm going to tell you it stumps everybody. And don't worry, it's definitely not a math question because I know that would never stump you. But I'm going to ask you anyway. And I love the fact that everybody gives me a different answer, no right or wrong. Obviously, our name is I Am Unbreakable. What does it mean to you to be unbreakable?
It means to be persistent, persevering. Um,
Yes.
I believe that's it. Just staying in the game. I've learned in life showing up is a big thing. If you show up, it matters. And so we go back to the vulnerability. We are vulnerable, but it doesn't mean we're breakable. So we'll stay in there. Um, I love it. It's Newton's second law of nature, of physics, is that a body in motion, a human being body in motion, will stay in motion unless acted upon by a greater force. And you define that, what that greater force is. I believe in saying there are going to be these roadblocks and bumps along the way, but keep going, keep moving. And that's what it means to me to be unbreakable.
I love that. And you're right. I mean, it means something to different sort of to everybody, but that's my answer too, is to persevere. And you keep talking about, showing up. I think showing up is 99.9% of it because even again, just going back to your presentation, you could have not showed up there, you could have not gone there, but you did, and you showed up and you learned and you grew from that.
Yes.
And imagine if you didn't, you would always be thinking what if, right? And it doesn't always have to have the outcome. There's another really important thing, and I'll sort of end with this last question. You said it seems like you do a lot of the same thing that I do. I don't really put a lot of negative out there. And, there's words like rejection and no and not today. I always say rejection is redirection. It just means it wasn't meant for you, not
Yes.
today, maybe tomorrow, maybe never, but it's okay. So you talk a lot about sort of changing the language. Would you say that's something that's really helped you to be as successful as you are? Meaning that if you look at something and it's all negative, you don't really do that. It sounds like you take the lesson and then you go with it. Would that be a fair statement? I'm just sort of looking for, because there's
Yes.
so
Yes.
many interesting parts to how you got to where you are today. And so, is that something that's sort of key for you, is not to sort of sit in, let's just call it negative or things that didn't work
Yeah.
out the way you planned?
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is that one, not expecting to be perfect, not expecting everything to go your way. Um, we, and so that's part of perfection. I think it's like, okay, I didn't get that investment because of me and my delivery or the way I positioned it. Part of it was that this individual is not interested in what you're selling. Uh,
Yep.
and so you say, okay, or you learn from it. Just say, or ask them, say, I, what could I have
How
done
could I have
differently?
done better?
Yes, yeah. What can you give me feedback? So I think that's a part of it, is that you hear the negativity, or you hear the word no. Okay, I don't take no as being negative, as you
Either
said.
do I.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
said, as you said, it's not for me, it's not right for them, and that's what we've all learned, as everything we do and say will not be accepted by, or by 100% of the people out there. And we know that. And so let's just accept that. And it's also your internal dialogue with yourself. I believe is very, very important. I've been, maybe again, it goes maybe back to my mother, the positive attitude that she had, and to always use positive language with yourself. Remember, be respectful of yourself too, just as you would be respectful of someone else.
That is so important. And there's so much power and value in what you just said because we all get into that negative space or have at one point in our life. And I just remember saying something to myself and I went, wow, I would never say what I just said to another human
Yes,
being. So
yes.
why am I being so unkind to myself? Why can't I give myself the grace of forgiveness or the grace of whatever and I don't even remember what it was, but I had that moment where I went, oh, that wasn't very nice, Adrian. That self talk, that wasn't very nice what you just said to yourself. Go sit
Yes.
in the corner. No,
Yeah.
but it is that realization, which again, I think comes with experience and age, that you do not and should never be critical of another human being. Same goes for not being critical of yourself, right? And giving yourself grace and forgiveness.
Yes.
You are an absolute rock star. I absolutely loved, loved, loved our chat today. I think you and I could chat for hours and hours, and
Yes.
I would love to have you on again. Thank you
I love
so
that.
much. I'm going to include your bio at the bottom, and if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they'll be able to do so, and
Yes.
we shall stay in touch. Thank you so much. Big love, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.